Hello, welcome back, Checkered Shorts, episode number 54, and it is race week, and the time has come, no more waiting, and we are thrilled to be having a week of prep, practice, quals, and then the race on Sunday down in St. Pete. So, episode 54, Professor Woody, what do you have for us?
Yeah, this one wasn't the easiest, but I just went back to the Indy 500, 1954. Was won by Bill Vukovich. It was his second in a row, and we've talked about Bill before, one of the greatest of all time. But the interesting story here is, we've talked about how many people used to try and qualify for the 500. A guy by the name of Bob Scott got bumped from the field on bump day. But one of his buddies, Bob Schweikert, had a connection to a car, and got Bob into that car. Bob took it out, was motoring around the track, flying around, first lap, second lap, comes to the line at the end of the third lap, sees the white flag, but the sun was coming to a setting, and he couldn't really see it very well, thought it was a checkered flag, slowed down and coasted around the rest of that lap. Ended up missing the field. Would have been in the field, but because he miscounted 3 laps versus 4, missed the 500 in 1954. Also in 1954 was the first time the words "Stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing" were uttered by Sid Collins, and I believe that those words were not his, that they came from an intern at the radio station, if I remember right, from what it says at the museum. So 1954, not much of a race. Bill Vukovich won that handily, but a couple of interesting facts about that year.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. It is. I mean, it is the most unique qualifying format, and I bet you without radios, it would probably happen a lot more often than you would think. So
yeah,
a lot going on, especially in this day and age.
Absolutely.
What lap you're on? Is that my second, third? Is this my third or fourth? Good story. Good story. Not surprised, kind of, but yeah, really good story.
Yeah. Poor Bob Scott ended up passing away later that year in a wreck at Darlington Raceway.
No kidding. Huh.
So we're with the season starting at St. Pete. We thought it would be appropriate to talk about some predictions for the season. Now that the slate of drivers is set and we're on the precipice of the season, I think one of the things that it's on the top of everyone's mind is, could there be a Palou Plummet? Is it possible for him to be knocked down a notch, or someone actually go up and compete for him for the top? I know in our last one of our most recent episodes, we were talking about our own predictions for the season, and one of the things it was a hopeful prediction was that in the first 4 races we would have someone else leading and he would have to try to play catch up. I think it's the best way for the field to have a chance at Palou. What do you guys think? Is there anyone in contention to compete with him week in and week out?
Yeah, I know we sat down last time and talked about our season predictions, and none of us picked Palou. I think that was wishful thinking. I don't. I think Palou wins it again, but I'm hopeful that it is competitive. I don't want a 200-point championship victory, but I'm hoping for a competitive season. I do think there are some guys out there. We talked about Pato. We talked about McLaughlin, Newgarden. Dixon obviously is always going to be in the mix. Kyle Kirkwood has gotten off to good starts the last couple of years. So I think there are some guys, but I just don't know if anybody can beat Alex. He's so good.
Yeah. I think hopefully after this year that somebody else might make some noise, but I tend to think and agree with Dinwiddie. I think he only has 19 wins, which isn't compared to everybody else, and he hasn't been in that. So he's still relatively new, kind of, it seems. He's not 23 or 24, but he still has a long way to go. He's going to start racking these things up unless somebody comes in and tries to knock him off. But no, nothing's really changed on his team. By far the best team. Everybody's coming back. So, yeah, there's no reason to think that somebody's going to really come out and knock them off. But hopefully we'll at least try to make it competitive, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah, the only thing you would think is that teams have upped their game, right?
Yeah.
Like when you've got somebody who's been head and shoulders above the rest, and we see it in the NFL, we see it in Major League Baseball, like teams really dedicate their time and energy. And I think drivers have done that. I think they're tired of watching Alex sit on top. So hopefully they've upped their game enough to compete.
Yeah, I was going to point to the same thing, Brian, but I was going to talk about the full team itself. And, it starts with the guy behind the wheel. I wonder if some teams feel like maybe they have a driver as good, but, what the difference is Alex can just do it lap over lap over lap over lap. Seems to be zero inconsistency in his preparation and in his performance. But that team that they've assembled is also what's so impressive. And you saw a lot of people this offseason make changes on the team. We didn't have a ton of news about driver. There were a couple of weeks where most of the news were about the teams. Different people brought in as strategists, different engineers. And you got to think those efforts are to attack the top, to have a shot at competing with that team of Chip Ganassi's put together.
No, that's a good point. I think sometimes when you see, and we talked to, other sports, let's say, Seattle just won the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. That was a guy who, hadn't had success early in his career in other places, but when the right mixture is put together. So I think you made a good point there that we may see somebody who's changed engineers or strategists or pit crew, maybe they found the right mix, and maybe they can take on Alex.
I pulled up the current drivers wins. Dixon 59, Power 45, Joseph 32, and then Palou at 19.
Interesting.
Yeah, it shows you. Well, you have to be in the sport a long time, which Dixon has been. Dixon was dominant, but I don't know if he's ever been. I mean, 6-time winner, but I don't remember a couple seasons like that back to back, to where he obliterated the competition. So we'll see. Be interesting. And to the crew point, they're just as good as Palou. You never saw them make a mistake, but I think Nance, Keith, you said it during one of the races. Like, there's a lot less pressure when you have 25-second lead.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still just that good. You never saw them falter or anything like that during the season, really, either. So just as good as the driver.
One of the other things that made a huge turn in the right direction last year for the sport was the Fox contract. And after year one, you saw some promise, you saw some momentum. What are you hoping for from Fox as we move forward into this season? And is there an opportunity to outperform last year's numbers on viewership?
I'm excited for it. Last year they brought like the helmet cam, not just the in-car cam, but the helmet cam to really see the jostling of the guys' helmets when they're driving and see a real perspective of. I think they have 15 of those coming back this season, so not every car. That was just super cool. I've been a race fan for a long time, and we've seen plenty of in cars, but we've never seen New Guard and their heads and just moving around like that. So that was really cool. And I'm sure they have a surprise up their sleeve of what else they might be doing, but that was cool to me for sure last year.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go is you never know with Fox, right? Like if I remember right, the whole team that they put together last year on the production side, not the on-air talent, because obviously Hinchcliffe and those guys had done it for a while, but the guys behind the scenes had never done auto racing before. They had done that. I think the lead guy was a baseball guy. So now that he's got a year of racing, like, are we going to see different camera angles than we've seen in the past? I know there's been hints towards that. Like, what are they going to do different from what we traditionally have seen from an IndyCar broadcast piece? Because I think last year they kind of tried to replicate what they had seen, but now do they take it there and make it their own?
It's a great point. I think at IMS too, you have a lot more exposure, a lot more ideas that you could throw out there that's visually appealing to the TV audience. So I think there'll be something pretty spectacular, I believe. Something that's not even been discussed yet.
Well, I think IndyCar did a good job, but I assume Fox has some input when it comes to TV schedule and things. But the schedule this year to start was a great step in the right direction. Much more consistency in the frequency of races, a lot fewer breaks. The addition of the Freedom 250, I think, is going to be a coverage windfall. I think it's got the opportunity. It's ripe for having a huge viewership because it's going to be promoted by our own federal government. So that's a great opportunity. The other thing I saw the other day, and I think this is kind of flying under the radar, is they're doing some more things on FS1 leading up to the race. There's a new racing-focused video podcast that's going to be out. It's going to have Will Buxton and Kevin Harvick. They're going to use the Speed brand from the old Speed Network. So that's kind of exciting. And you got to think with Harvick and Buxton, they're going to be talking some F1 racing. They're going to be talking NASCAR, Swiss racing in general, but IndyCar is going to get its time because obviously they're trenched in it. So,
yeah, I'd like to see maybe more celebrities. Maybe Fox bring them into the booth, maybe things like that. Because once, when they do that, then those people go to social media and they share their experiences, and that gets more to the masses. So maybe that's what I'm hopeful for to see.
Yeah, there are some of those celebrities that have a greater following on their Instagram than the whole NTT series combined. So it is a new way in 2026 to advertise to the masses.
It'll be cool to see what graphics they come up with. I think at Fox, they had a whole year under their belt with IndyCar and what they come up with. I know they got rid of the caricatures for Fox or for NASCAR. I think a lot of people didn't like it, which I wasn't too opposed about. I thought it was kind of cool, but so they got rid of that for NASCAR. I would assume they'd probably do the same for IndyCar. Seeing what those look like next week, the intro, the race intro, stuff like that, all those graphics. It's a little step, but Fox does it really well, and that's why I think IndyCar partnered with them.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for them to take another step to build on the momentum. I think that this year we're going to see another jump, and then I think that's going to be evident even in the attendance at the events. Last year, there were a couple of events we went to where we were pleasantly surprised, and I think that Fox had to have some impact on that because they were races that are a little later in the season. An excellent crowd at St. Louis. We were like, well, this is a Sunday night. It's going to be a night race. It's late. It was Father's Day. But it was a packed house, great event. They showed out every time we've been to the Bomarito. It's been an excellent race. And then Milwaukee, I mean, really the only race we attended where we were down when we walked out of there was Iowa. And it's from previous experiences. And because we know that there was zero investment in advertising that race.
Zero.
Yeah.
Well, we're not there anymore. They took it off the schedule because of that. So, I think it's, and Fox they've got a reason now to be a part of this. So not just as a broadcaster, but as a partner in IndyCar. So, buying into the series, that gives them a little more motivation to really promote and do some awesome things. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. And so another thing, kind of expectation-wise, there's a lot of guys out there on the grid that have some expectations on themselves, and they're probably heating up. You talk about a situation where there's hot seats maybe. A lot of guys are coming up on a contract year. What does that look like? We haven't ever seen like a full-blown free agency in IndyCar, but there's a lot of seats.
That's an interesting thing because, we're sitting here in February talking about, who might not be in this seat next year, but I think it's something we want to watch. And I think the biggest one of those is Joseph Newgarden. It seems like over the last few years, there seems to be some tension there within the team. They're not performing at the level that he wants to see and honestly what Roger and the team want to see either. So, is this going to be a bounce back year for Joseph? If it is, then Roger probably continues to sign him. But if it's still finishing somewhere between 6 and 12 and in the standings, like, is it time for that to part? And there's a lot of teams out there that would love to throw Newgarden in a car, whether it's a Chip Ganassi or a Meyer Shank or a McLaren or somebody. So they've got some openings. That's one that's right there that I'm watching all year. How's Joseph performing, and when will we know that? Because a lot of times these deals get done mid-season. They don't wait until August or September.
Yep. I mean, I think Ericsson's a big one. He's not nearly the level of Newgarden, but it's a big seat. It's a good team. He's a proven winner. He's just, since he's been in Andretti, I think hasn't done what they've expected. He crashed. It sounds like it wasn't his fault, but during the test in Phoenix. So he has to produce. It's still a good open seat, man. And you don't want to lose that team. You don't want to downgrade to a Juncos or an AJ Foyt team, something like that. So it's a big year for him, and who would possibly be filling that seat? VK, even though he's with Juncos. I don't know his year commitment, but I mean, those things are easily breakable, I think, sometimes. So where he would jump into either of those seats.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a 1-year deal at Juncos. Siegel's on a 1-year deal. Colette's on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Just guys, depending on what their performance looks like this year, where could they be? I would guess Felix has to be. Felix and Marcus are probably in that free agent market as well. So,
you're right.
I just think there's a lot of guys out there. I think Siegel's probably the biggest one that's in a really good car and a really good team right now. That's worth watching. To see where we're at there.
Yeah, he's got to produce. Young, 19, 20 years old, really young, really good team. He's paying for the seat, but you still got to produce. So I think we'll see what happens with him. But he's Zach Brown's already said he's on the hot seat.
Correct.
So
correct.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know, right? Well, we lost our producer here for a minute, but Pat, what are your thoughts on the that Phoenix test?
It was good to see 25 cars out. Sounded like they got a little rain on that second session, I believe, but to no surprise, to some surprise, ECR can't call him Ed Carpenter Racing anymore, apparently. ECR top of the list with Rossi, so that's really cool. Hopefully, I'm not a huge Rossi fan. I could go either way, but I want to see somebody else. There he is.
I think I just won the ship hit of the week.
That was the and for record time.
I was in and out of there quick, man. Put me on the watch.
All right. We were talking about the Phoenix testing and seeing Rossi atop of the charts for at least one of the sessions. I don't know. Overall, I don't even know if they compute all of that. But good to see that team just for competitiveness. He is still a really good driver. Hasn't done shit since 18, really. I think he won a Indy GP there, but it's good. Marcus Armstrong's up there. Overall, for me, it was just good to hear and see cars on the track. Like it's officially IndyCar season now.
Yeah, it sounded like the drivers were pretty pleased with the track overall. Having been there in 7 years, didn't know how it was going to feel. I know they talked about there being some issues maybe with the right front. I know we dealt with that last year at Nashville and maybe even Milwaukee as well. But that's why we do all this testing, right? Like they've had 2 previous sessions, and now they've had the full field there for 2 days.
Yep.
So they should have a lot of information they should be going back to now. so that when we come back to Phoenix, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, we'll be ready to race there. So
it'll be exciting, man. Like they're still fresh off of that. Their memory still. They'll be ready to chomp at the wheel, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was smart on IndyCar's from IndyCar's standpoint in the raceway to offer free admission for fans in the area. So those that were in Phoenix and in Arizona, you were able to go see IndyCars on the track. Maybe that gets you to come back, and put butts in the seats for the race next week.
Yep.
I think for me, the thing I took away from the Phoenix testing, some of the interviews that you saw, the guys were pretty excited. You can tell they're ready for racing to start, and several of them seemed rather optimistic. Not just normal talk, if we can do this or that, if we get things straight here or there. I think there's some guys that have some true confidence coming into this season. They felt like they moved up from one team to another, get a greater opportunity. And I think there are some guys that feel like as a team they've gotten stronger. I think Rahaal's invested a lot, and I think they've got a new level of confidence. I mean, where does that put them? Probably more middle of the pack. But Andretti, I think they're really excited about their lineup of drivers. So it's going to be a fun season for sure. And I can't believe we're just 7 days away.
Exactly.
It was Malukas was up there. Malukas, we all know, is a decent driver, but give him some better equipment. And at least the test is showing that. Newgarden was up there, obviously. Stingray Rob was not up there. Looks like he was dead last. So just Kirkwood, Power, 7th, 8th. Erickson was 9th. So, yeah, nothing too spectacular, I don't think. Rasmussen was 4th. So he's kind of all over the place, but going to have cars on track for sure. And like I said, officially race season.
Yeah, I saw Stingray. He looked a little disappointed after the testing, and someone came up and asked him, what's wrong, and he said, "I really miss Jacob Abel."
Devlin DeFrancesco.
All right. Yeah. Well, I think that's what we got for episode 54. So thank you guys for joining us. We are be right back with you on Thursday with our pre-race for St. Pete.
Let's go. See ya.
Yep.